Noah's Ark 2x2 formation. Road change, now we go racing for the first time this season. 3 hours of GT action, it's go.
It's very tight as they come down. Group of cars coming in. This has all got trouble written all over it. This is G3 cars.
Drop downhill there, head towards the Aqua Minerale. Imola, of course. There's another one off through the gravel. As wide as possible as they drop downhill, put it back from the inside line. Yes, he did. Through he goes.
Good evening everybody and welcome back to another Apex Online Racing stream here for round 3 of the BMW M2 Racing Cup hosted by AOR. Now, you may see, if you're the more eagle-eyed amongst you, that this is Laguna Seca, which originally would have played host to our grand finale for the season. But unfortunately, last time that I was commentating a couple of weeks ago now, at round 2 at Silverstone, unfortunately there was an issue with the server provider for AOR, which meant that all of the servers went down, and I think with only about 15 minutes to go left on the clock, the race unfortunately fell apart and ended up having to be postponed to next week. So we'll be going back to Silverstone for the finale, which maybe is a fitting end for this championship, because prior to that point we had some brilliant action. The very tricky weather conditions and the nature of that circuit made it a brilliant host for what will now be the final race of the season. And last week you were left in the very, very capable hands of Tetradax, who stepped in on quite late notice, so huge thank you to him for giving you such a brilliant stream last week at the Nürburgring, where based on the results that happened there, Connor Wright ended up taking back-to-back Grand Slams for the first half of the championship. Now clearly the way that things were going at Silverstone, it didn't look like he was going to be on target to hit that sort of mark, but he did everything right and did everything he needed to do when he got to Nürburgring last week, and that enabled him to put himself in the absolute best position he possibly could be for the championship. And speaking of the championship, a bit of a run through of the standings. Connor Wright dominating at the top of the leaderboard on 216 points, taking those 2 wins in the first 2 rounds of the season, followed up by Christian Steinhauser. Not a name that we sort of particularly have taken a great deal of kind of notice of kind of really powerful, impactful performances, but has just remained very consistent in the opening couple of rounds with a 4th and 6th place position, and that's enabled him to put himself into 2nd place. Similar story for Anthony Fernandez. Finished 8th in the opening rounds at Alton Park, so nothing too special, but a very solid 4th place last time at the Nürburgring has seen him go up to 3rd. Then Christos Yoguk currently sits in P4, with Dennis Bjorkquist rounding out the top 5, followed by William Dorsch in 6th, Heiko in 7th, and a good effort from him. That's his only entry into the season so far. So out of the drivers joined us for the first time last week, as we see Dominic Gultz having a rather big moment on the exit of, where was that? That was turn 6, and I'm sure we'll be seeing plenty more of those. But yes, Heiko getting a good 7th place position there to see him go into 7th place in the championship. So a good opening bid from him. Alexander Irish not attending last week's race, but he is here today, so it'll be interesting to see if he can challenge up the front once again, with then another impressive debut of Andre Manol, who ended up finishing in 3rd place. Looked like at times he might have actually had the potential to challenge for even more, but didn't quite have the pace for anything further in the end. And then Dominic Gultz, who had a rather unfortunate end to his race at the Nürburgring, had a brilliant strategy and seemed very much on track to be challenging for a podium level position. Didn't have a good qualifying session, but really, really strong pace throughout the race, and unfortunately made a mistake in the latter portions that ended up seeing him drop down to P5 in the end. So he is currently sitting 10th place, but already bouncing back in fine form as he currently sits in this practice session provisionally fastest, ahead of championship leader Connor Wright by quite considerable margin, almost 0.3 of a second there, and the only driver in the 1:35. So it might not be all she wrote for Dominic Gultz yet in terms of this championship if he can string together a good couple of results for the final couple of races of the season. But there's still a little bit more about the track. So here at Laguna Seca, not a circuit that we see all too often on the calendar, because it's one of those circuits which, particularly for GT3 racing, isn't the most conducive for great action. It's very technical, it's very fiddly, it's very tight and twisty, and it just doesn't always tend to be a fan favourite for good racing. It's quite a good driver's track, and it's a very rewarding track to get right and put a quick lap together with, but it hasn't necessarily always provided the best racing because overtaking opportunities are limited. The undulation around this circuit can be quite tricky, and also BOP is a killer here, where effectively, in order to win this race, you need to drive a Porsche, otherwise you'll probably be looking to scrape a top 10 finish if you're in quite a competitive field, because the Porsche has always been absolutely ridiculously fast around here. But with the BMW M2s, there's a couple of things that then are going to change amongst all of that. Obviously, that means all of these guys are driving the same car, so everyone is on a level playing field from that perspective. Also, these cars are a lot more friendly with the dangerous and tricky curbs and slightly sketchy areas of this circuit that can be so cataclysmic when you get it wrong in the GT3 cars. These BMWs are a bit more forgiving and a bit nicer across some of the bumps, and we'll see in the corkscrew that although it's still going to be a hell of a ride for these guys as they descend through that left and right series of corners, that the BMWs will be a bit more friendly around that part of the circuit. And also, the nature of these cars we've already seen does provide a fantastic platform for some close racing. So heading into qualifying now, so I should just transition us in. And also to note from today, those of you who have been asking for the timings on the leaderboard for such a long time when I've been hosting, I do believe that finally your prayers have been answered and that those should be working. So fingers crossed they will appear both for qualifying and the race. I shall try to sort it out if they don't, but hopefully, all things being well, that should be all good on that front. But getting started off now with qualifying as these guys start to make their way around effectively their warm-up lap, trying to get as much heat into those tyres as possible, get the tyres up to pressure, and pressure is probably one of the key things to do with the tyres around this circuit, because some of these bumps and curbs are so savage. Even some of the runoff, you can see we've kind of got this something unusual setup for the circuit where we've got curb and then dropping off straight into dirt. It's not gravel, there are a couple of gravel traps, but mostly around here it's just this very unfriendly dirt surface, and some of the bumps hidden amongst that dirt can be really, really severe for these tyres. And if you don't quite have them up to pressure and you hit one of those bumps at speed, before you know it, you can be knocking air out of that tyre and put yourself in jeopardy of getting a slow puncture, and that can be absolutely disastrous for any one of these guys' races, and immediately will see you losing lap time, and it will just end up spiraling further and further. So certainly a situation that these guys want to avoid. As you can see, everybody now backing up a bit going into the final corner to start their lap. I think let's hop on board with Dominic Gultz and see how he gets on around here. We'll go for a lap around Laguna Seca, so want to maximise your exit out of the final corner and carry all of that speed and momentum. One of the big buzzwords in this championship, momentum in these cars is so important, and carrying that all the way down to the first proper corner of turn 2 of the Andretti hairpin. As a car on the inside there, and Dominic Gultz doing a brilliant job there of hitting that double apex. Tricky, gets the kick of oversteer on the exit turn 2 though. You can see how quickly the grip drops away from you, and then into the right hander of 3, trying to use as much of that exit curb on the outside as he can, staying on it as long as he dares, and then cutting across for turn 4, carrying loads of momentum through there as the car next to him gets out of the way brilliantly there, not to cost him too much time, and then hard on the brakes for turn 5. Tricky braking zone for this one, very easy to miss your braking point, and using the camber of the corner there to try to carry as much speed through there as possible. Now one of the worst corners on the circuit if you get it on turn 6. So much commitment and trying to get it turned in there. He does a brilliant job of catching the oversteer on the exit, but these cars haven't got the downforce of GT3s. The transition of understeer to oversteer is very severe. The kink of 7, hard on the brakes into the corkscrew. Absolutely the most famous corner around the circuit, one of the most famous series of corners worldwide, and then going through into rainy curve. It feels like this corner goes on forever, and getting on the power as early as he can. Hard on the brakes again for 10, get it hooked into that camber on the power. Don't want to run too wide there. Also a tricky entry for the pit lane for these guys as well, and then hard on the brakes into 11, nicely spotting the apex there on the power, and then carrying that to the line. We'll see what lap time that is going to be for Dominic Gultz as he goes to the line. It'll be good enough for P3, but obviously there is more lap time to be found there. A couple of big mistakes for Dominic Gultz, but in the meantime, Connor Wright going fastest so far on a 36.365, and only 0.02 of a second behind him is Robin Moe. We've seen that Robin has had good pace at points in the season. He got very unfortunate at the opener at Alton Park, but we know that he is very quick. Also somebody that has bounced back a little bit from a couple of difficult races for Sebastian Fiedlach. Alton Park didn't seem to particularly have that much pace in the car, and then Silverstone, he was leading the race for almost its entirety, but then unfortunately, before we could see the conclusion of how that was going to pan out with a very hard-charging Dominic Gultz in the final stages, could not see if Fiedlach was going to hold on to that one, but clearly was setting himself up to be in a very, very strong position by the end of it. And then the Nürburgring, a little bit like Alton Park, just didn't quite seem to settle into a good rhythm around there, and ended up not quite getting the finishing performance that we would have expected based on how he drove at Silverstone, only just about managing to secure a top 10, but seems to have bounced back quite nicely here at Laguna Seca, and is currently on a good improvement, a 1/10 of a second up. See if he can get himself up into the top 5 again, and he does improve, but not quite good enough actually to see him jump up the order. But someone has jumped up the order significantly is Dominic Gultz, who now has closed into within a 1/10 of Connor Wright's improvement there, both extending the gaps to those guys just behind, so we could have a very, very competitive front row between these two guys. In the last couple of races, it's a very big kick of oversteer from Dominic Gultz, looking like he is using quite a twitchy setup here, and maybe getting a little bit a little bit less reliant on the traction control in these cars, which generally speaking you do want to do, because these cars, they don't have a great deal of power, and also that you're not able to carry fantastic speed through the corners using downforce. So, you know, really having as minimal losses of power going to the rear wheels as possible is absolutely necessary if you want to get the best out of the car in terms of pure pace. But inevitably it does lead to some slightly hairier moments, which Dominic Gultz has has done a great deal of demonstrations of that already for us, as a mixture of yellow flags around the circuit. I imagine that will be a common theme for both qualifying and the race. Laguna Seca, a very, very tricky beast to tame and very, very unforgiving at times. Have already said that these cars will be a little bit easier to get around here than the likes of the GT3 cars, but don't let that fool you into thinking that that's making these guys' jobs too much easier. As going to the line, Dominic Gultz won't be improving on this one. Scruffy effort on that last attempt, but he's seemingly got enough fuel to go for another one, so we'll see if he is able to put a better lap together. Who else have we got on an improvement? Oh, I tell you what, shout out to one driver, Christian Burindia. Has put himself into provisional P3, and this is his debut round for the series, so a bit like Andre last week, already making a very, very good impression in his first effort here. So that is fantastic stuff from him. Just behind him, Robin Moe and Christian Steinhauser doing identical lap times on a 36.162. So Robin Moe must have got that time in before Christian, meaning that he currently sits in that P4 spot. So good to see those guys sitting in the top 5 again. Another driver to draw some attention to, Christian Romano. A good effort from him for the time being, currently sitting in provisional P8. Hasn't always had the pace for nearer the front of the field earlier on in this series, but a strong showing so far from Romano, so a good effort from him, and actually sitting just ahead of Fiedelac at the moment. So Fiedelac is on an improvement of a couple of tenths. That was him in the background behind Christian, so we'll see what he does as he comes towards the line. This looks like this should see him potentially scrape into the top 5. It might see him go into P6. Maybe make that P7, and not even quite that in the end. Lost momentum on the exit of the final corner, and he will only get up to P8 for the time being. We've got another new driver for the series. We've got Simon Beeg, who is currently 6 tenths up on his current best, sitting on a 138.4 at the moment. So Simon building up some confidence and speed in the car at the moment, but does look like he is gaining time hand over fist at the moment, so that should see him move up the order quite significantly. And for the time being, we've got a few guys doing laps at the moment. To see some dust being kicked out there through the exit of turn 4. Again, I imagine that's going to be a common theme once we've got these guys driving very close together. I expect to see quite a substantial amount of clouds of dust from each of these guys. And just behind Christian on the circuit, we've got Connor Wright, who I think has turned up with a slightly modified livery for this race, representing VanMools SimSport as always for Connor. And I think he's modified one of the other in-game liveries with the VanMools SimSport colours. No custom liveries, unfortunately, for this series, but still, some drivers making use of the in-game editor to get some custom liveries in there. I think Connor Wright at the moment is just setting up a lap. As in the meantime, we've got Robin Moe, who's currently found a 10th on his lap. We've got less than 5 minutes left of qualifying to go, so he'll be looking to try to see that one to the line and get himself up potentially into the top 3, as one driver who skirting on the edge of breaking into the 35s with our 2 guys on the front row. William Dorsch has seen himself do a 136 dead. So a brilliant lap time there from him. The driver currently sitting P6 in the standings. So a strong showing from him to try to challenge for a personal best result of the season. Going to hop back though, looking at Christian Steinhauser. Actually is a lot earlier on the lap than I anticipated, but already up 2 tenths on this lap in the very first sector, although that was a big kick of oversteer as he went through turn 3. How's he fare through turn 4? We can see how tricky these cars are to get through here. And just look at Laguna Seca, it's just, the margins are so fine, similar to Alton Park in a way, that it really encourages you to throw the car into every corner, but the damage that you can sustain to your lap can be absolutely awful at times, as Christian Hauser takes a huge chunk of curb there. Wouldn't see many cars other than the Bentley or the Lexus potentially getting away with that in GT3, but in these BMWs absolutely using all of the suspension travel and a bit more there to absorb some of these big sausage curves. That was smart and tidy through the corkscrew chicane, and then it's like a decent line through Rainy Curve. It does look like he's managed to maintain that 10th of second advantage, so this would allow him to jump in front of Robin Moe if he can see this one to the line. Doesn't look like he will get held up by the number 25 car ahead of him. If anything, actually get a nice tow down the start-finish straight. That is Nathaniel Shirley just ahead of him, and Christian Steinhauser, he heads towards the line, will be good enough for P4 of 36.050, so a good improvement there from him. Also, other cars still going faster. Now, Alexander Irish currently sitting in P12, uncharacteristically low down in the order for him at the moment. He is 3 tenths of a second up. That will see him look to challenge towards the top 6. We've got a lot of drivers starting to improve those in these dying moments. Alexander Irish, though, up by half a second now. This could be a very, very quick lap time indeed to see him shoot up towards challenging for the top 3 spots, is where we'd expect to see Alexander after such strong showings at the first couple of rounds. Obviously, the second round unofficially at Silverstone before being rained off, and he was driving very well there before, unfortunately getting a drive-through penalty. He comes out the final corner. He does look like he's held a 4 tenths of a second advantage. That should see him challenge for around P5 or 6. It will see him split the 2 and go into 6th position on a 36.135, just narrowly missing out on top 5 by 3 thousandths, but he will have one more, if not 2 more efforts to try to improve. But I tell you what, someone who's got a big, big improvement, and this could be an absolutely huge lap time. Christian Perindi has got a half a second gain, and he sees that one to the line, goes into provisional pole position on 35.582. A fantastic effort there, and what a way to finish this qualifying session if he can maintain that pole position on his debut. A brilliant, brilliant time there from him, as Fernandez also improves significantly and he goes up into provisional P3. So there'll be a couple more attempts for these guys. Fernandez, actually, that's going to be it for him, so he won't improve any further. Where is Connor Wright at the moment? So Connor Wright, I think, has started a lap, not currently showing any form of improvement at the moment, so he's going to have to dig pretty deep if he wants to find that 10th, just over a 10th and a half that he needs to challenge that fantastic time from Christian there. That was a brilliant, brilliant late effort to see him jump further up the order. Also on his debut, Simon Beeg is currently sitting in top 10, so a good effort from him. William Dorsch has found a 10th in the opening part of the lap, so he might get into the 35s, but in the meantime, Connor Wright was briefly up by 2 tenths of a second there, but I think he lost it on the exit of the corkscrew chicane, so I'm not sure if Connor's going to be able to maintain his Grand Slam record from the first couple of races. Could we see someone officially taking a new pole position? Connor Wright coming into the final corner now, hard on the brakes, then trying to get on the power as early as possible. I'm not sure it's going to be enough for Connor to maintain that form from the opening couple of rounds. He heads towards the line. It's not. It's a 35.800, so just fractionally slower than his previous effort, but he will have to settle for at least P2 unless the likes of William Dorsch can find any extra time. He's hovering around his previous best. We've also got Manuel Rutter, who has I think just crossed the line. He jumps up to P12. What's it going to be for William Dorsch? I think it's going to be a very similar situation. Connor Wright, he does improve, but only by a couple of hundred, so he'll have the pride of breaking into the 35s, as I think I just heard a car in the background slamming into the wall, possibly out of frustration. But William Dorsch does improve, but can't quite move up the order. Do we have anyone else improving? We've got James Riley, who's gone off at the final corner. That'll be his last attempt. Unfortunately, was 0.3 of a second up, but not able to bring the car home in the end, so he will have to settle for P19, and in the end, that will be it for qualifying. So a brilliantly entertaining session there, and a new name at the front of the grid, Christian Burundi, and I apologise if I am butchering that pronunciation, but a fantastic, stellar effort from him to get that number 19 car up to the front of the pack. No easy feat to get in front of the likes of Connor Wright, Dominic Gultz, and also very, very strong showing from Fernandez, who currently sits P3 in the championship and will line up P3 on the grid. So a lot of our championship contenders there very much remaining consistent and keeping themselves at the front of the field. So lining up on pole position then for his first race in the championship, Christian Burundi in that number 19 car. An absolutely storming show from him in qualifying, and just chipped away and found a bit more confidence each time round and put an absolutely brilliant lap in there in the end, state pole position. Connor Wright, championship leader, won't be able to maintain his streak of Grand Slams everywhere. As first lot of penalties coming in. We'll have to keep an eye if we see any more. But Connor Wright having settled for P2 in qualifying today. Anthony Fernandez, P3 in standings, and will start P3 on the grid, followed by Dominic Gultz, who at a point looked like he might be trying to go for provisional pole. Couldn't quite hook it together in the end, looking like he's got maybe a slightly tricky car to drive around this circuit. He'll be hoping that maybe it's a little bit easier to tame in race trim, but he'll be followed up by William Dorsch. A strong showing from him. I think that's his personal best qualifying of the season so far, starting in P5, followed by Christian Steinhauser, currently sitting P2 in the standings, but we've seen in the first couple of rounds very, very consistent performances from him, and he'll be looking to do the same. Robin Moe, good to see him up the order once more, as Alexander Irish, who was sitting in P8, I think, has disconnected from the session. So Alexander Irish, after getting himself in a reasonable position, I don't think this is the first time that this has happened to Alexander in the transition between qualifying and the race, unfortunately has disconnected from the session. So it's a disaster from his perspective, obviously looking to try to get his championship fight back on track, but won't be able to do that today. So very, very unfortunate there for him. So that's going to promote Simon Beeg up into P8. So a brilliant debut for him as well, followed by Sebastian Fiedlach. Maybe a little bit disappointed there in the end not to get higher up the order. We know what Sebastian is capable of, and maybe he'll come back into fine form for the finale. We know obviously he was quick at Silverstone, so it may be that he just gets on with these wet weather conditions a lot better than the dry. And then Christian Romando will round up the top 10, so a good showing from him as well. Manuel Rutter will start in P11, as I think there was a car disappearing from the pit lane there. So didn't quite catch who that was. Not sure if maybe that was something to do with Alexander Irish. Oh! Alexander Irish has reconnected and seems to be at the back of the grid. So, unfortunately, does look like he will have lost his starting position, but at least he will be seemingly making the start of this race, and I'm sure that Alexander will be looking to put on quite a show for us. We'll have to keep a close eye on him. 45 minutes and a lot of time to make up positions. Maybe we'll go for a strategy a bit like Dominic Gultz did when he found himself in not the most of ideal qualifying positions to start the race. So we'll have to keep an eye on how he gets on. But going back to the mid-pack, behind Manuel Rutter, we've got Dennis Bjorkquist starting a little bit lower than we would have come to expect of Dennis in the last couple of races, but he has demonstrated good racecraft at points, so he might climb up the order. Josh Waring starting in P13 with Sam Maudsley just behind him, followed by Philip Beale. Philip Beale has become quite the name, although maybe not the strongest in qualifying. He is consistently brilliant at racecraft, and I think my top overtakes from the last couple of races have been attributed to Philip. He did a brilliant move at Alton Park, did some fantastic overtaking at the Nürburgring as well, and some fantastic battles at Silverstone to boot as well. So we'll have to see what he can come up with. He might have to get quite creative around Laguna Seca, as there is limited ways of opportunity to climb up these spots. And Heiko starting down in P16, not where he would have expected or wanted to be after that strong showing at the Nürburgring. So he'll be hoping to try to put those many seasons of experience, obviously a well-known name in the AOR community, very, very brilliant, highly contributing staff member to the AOR scene for a number of years, so always a fan favourite amongst the community, and he'll be looking to try to use that knowledge that he's gained to climb up the order. Kiki Mack starting just behind him in P19, followed by Sharbolks, who's got that 30-second penalty carrying over from the last race. So that's going to be a very difficult one for him to bounce back from. And then Krzysztof Wiskowski in the most wanted livery, Need for Speed BMW there, starting in P21, followed by Nathaniel Shirley. John Eric Tonstad will start in P23. Yannick Lautenschlager, or Schlager, excuse me, I think after listening back to Tetradax, our German-speaking commentator, I will trust his pronunciation on the German names. I do believe that is Lautenschlager, so I shall make that correction from here on out. But lining up behind him is Mario Bernardis. I think this might be his first round. And then Alexander Irish, of course, at the back of the field, not where he would have been hoping to be, but hopefully he can make a good comeback through the field. But these guys rounding through the final corner now as they will start to get ready to get away in this race. Christian, his debut, starting on pole position. Will he be able to maintain that advantage down towards turn one? These guys waiting for the lights now. And it is green, and it looks like it's been a pretty good start there from Christian. I don't think Connor Wright got away particularly well there, going down towards turn one. It looks like Christian is going to be able to hold on to that advantage. Oh, contact there in the background. Robin Moe giving a little bit of a nudge to, I think that was William Dorsch, but Christian will hold on to the lead at the front there. A little bit of an oversteer moment in the background for, I think that was Simon Beek or Fielak. Who is that that's made up positions? I think that is Simon Beek. So he has gained a couple of spaces, getting very, very busy in the background as well. I think we've got Robin Moe coming under pressure from some of the other guys there as the timing board starts to sort itself out. Still very much even at the front with Dominic Gultz putting pressure onto Fernandez. Haven't seen any incidents so far, so it looks like these guys have remained fairly clean across the field so far. I don't want to be seeing too much side-by-side action on this early stage of the race, because it can get rather dangerous at points. Maybe might see a bit of a dive from Fielak, potentially going into the corkscrew. Thinks about going towards the outside. Robin Moe takes the insiders. Who was that going very, very deep on the outside? I think that was Dennis Bjorkquist, but does get it stopped in the end. It doesn't look like, though, anyone's going to be able to progress too much further up the order for the time being, as there's a lot of busyness going on in the background there. Alexander Irish making up a few spots already, so doing what he needs to do in order to try to recover this race. But Christian Burundi didn't let the pressure of his debut in the series get to him, and he's already put a good few car lengths on Connor Wright. But we've got a bit of a train already building. We've got Simon B coming under pressure now from William Dorsch and Robin Moe, as we've got a yellow flag in the background for the 777 car. That is Heiko, so not sure what's happened to him. Simon B having to go defensive. That is Robin Moe, though, trying to go on the inside of William Dorsch going through the exit of turn 2, now trying to go around the outside into turn 3. Felak trying to get involved in this one now as well. Felak gets his nose up the inside. The thing is going to have to force that side-by-side action going towards turn 4 as well. Robin Moe does give him space. These guys giving each other just enough room. That's given a run to Romano, and Bjorkquist in the background. So it's going to get very, very busy as they head down towards turn 5. Robin Moe, though, does defend the inside. Could be contact, though, between Felak and Romano. Just about managing to get away with that one. Not sure how, as we've almost got 3 wide going up towards turn 6. I said not too much side-by-side action, guys. Coming down, it's got Bjorkquist trying to go around the outside of Romano. That's not going to work. Rutter trying to get involved in this one as well. Bjorkquist, though, carrying momentum all the way up the hill, trying to see if he can get down the inside towards the corkscrew chicane. Rutter also trying to look for a move. Bjorkquist, can he get the braking done? Rutter, I think, trying to send out the inside. Very late on, we've got a yellow flag for number 24 car in the background there. We'll have to check who that was. Bjorkquist, though, going side by side still with Romano through the ready curve, and it does look like he's just about going to get that one done. Can Rutter capitalise on that as well, going side by side on the outside into turn 10? But Romano will hold on to that position for the time being. So getting very, very busy already. You can see as soon as you get side by side with these cars, that just provides action all the way to the other end of the lap. I think it was a 24 car I saw a yellow flag for. That was Witkowski, who I think has left the session. So very unfortunate there from him. Romano trying to come back on. Dennis just ahead of him, but unable to do so. And Heiko is still with us in the session, but has lost a great deal of time. We'll check back up the front, though. A little bit of a breakaway from the likes of Wright and Christian ahead, but Fernandez coming under a little bit of pressure from those blue and white BMWs, Dominic Gultz and Steinhauser behind, but holding on to that one for the time being. Still an ongoing battle between Romano and Rutter. Rutter senses an opportunity to try to go for P10. I think Rutter got a very, very good bit of drive there through the exit of turn 5 and then turn 6. So tricky to try to carry speed through there, and Romano was very, very committed on the inside of that apex. That's given him a bit of a run onto the likes of Bjorkquist. Bjorkquist doesn't look to defend there. Everyone holding kind of around the middle of the track and unable to make a move. But Romano not letting go of this one just yet. Still trying to put Bjorkquist under all sorts of pressure. But it does look like Bjorkquist got a good exit there out of the rainy curve and into turn 10, as Romano, though, did get really stuck into the camber there and immediately close that gap down. So will he be able to do anything down towards turn 2? Checking back up ahead, though, Simon B coming under pressure now from William Dorsch. It's been a brilliant start so far from Simon B, but will Dorsch's experience be what he needs to get past the BMW ahead of him? Doesn't look like he'll be able to do anything just yet. We'll have to settle. Also runs a little bit wide on the exit of turn 2. There's a Simon managing to hold on to that P6 for the time being. Looking a bit further back, though, we've got that ongoing battle between Romano and Rutter, but we've also got a battle developing between Maudsley and Waring. A little bit of a train going on as Maudsley thinks about an opportunity. Waring thinks about an opportunity going into turn 4, but that's going to give a run to Riley as we'll hop on the rear wing of Maudsley, giving us a brilliant view of these two going side by side. That is Waring trying to defend the inside and a little bit of contact on the exit of turn 5, but will manage to make that one work. And then in the background, we've also now got Riley and Alves going side by side. Alves stealing up the inside of turn 6. Brilliant move there, and that's given an opportunity now to Alexander Irish trying to search his way out through the field. 147 car in the background has gone off. Irish just squeezing his way through, and maybe a spin late on the brakes for Alexander Irish, but brilliantly takes 2 cars. At the same time, Alves trying to come back, will come across the apex. Don't think he expected Alexander Irish to come from that far back. I certainly didn't, but he will make the move stick. Those Riley's not giving up on the position. Somehow he's trying to go for 2 for 1 as well, but I think Irish now may be able to hold on to that position, and a brilliant dive there from the 114 car. As Riley almost goes straight, he makes contact with him. Irish, though, gets tagged by Alves. He's holding the brakes. Alves constantly bumping into him on the exit of the corner. And Alexander Irish, you poor unlucky man, after a brilliant charge in the opening laps through the field, gets contact there from Riley, missing his braking into the final corner, and a series of taps from Alves. Irish did the right thing, just holding the brakes there, trying to stay out of trouble, but unfortunately got a series of taps on the back, and that's going to be quite a bit of damage. So how unfortunate there for Irish. Didn't lose too much time in the grand scheme of things, but several positions lost, and that is absolutely gutting for him. But he is a hard charger, we know that, so he'll be more determined than ever to try to make up some positions. Already trying to look to go around the outside of Jon-Erik Tonstad. That will be a cutback through turn 5. Can he get the drive up towards turn 6? I think he might be able to make this one just about work. Tonstad just about managing to keep that advantage, though does go a little bit wide. Irish gets a much better run through turn 6 then, and we've seen him already make a very late move going into the corkscrew chicane. Surely he'll be able to make this one stick as well. Later on the brakes down the inside, Tonstad tries to hold it but is unable to do so, and Irish will see himself reclaim that P17 position. And we'll try to set about reclaiming some of that lost time from that incident. Very, very unfortunate there for those guys. Checking up ahead, though, we've also got some battles going on. We've got several battles going on, as we expect. Also, I think we've got 3 wide going down towards turn 1. We've got Simon Beek, Feedlack, and Robin Moe all going down into turn 2 now. Robin Moe on the inside of, I think, the pair of them, and he'll get that one stick already. Some brilliant 2-for-1 overtakes from several of these guys. And Feedlack, I think, wasn't able to quite make the move there, so Beeg losing the position to Robin Moe, but a brilliant overtake from those two guys. The Laguna Seca providing more action than we possibly could have anticipated. A fantastic bit of driving there, opportunistic driving from Robin Moe. In the background we've got Bjorkquist as there's a very slow moving car of the 28. Who is that? That is Fernandez. So what on earth happened to Fernandez then? So Fernandez was sitting up in P4. At some point, he's lost the position to Dominic Gultz. He was coming under pressure from Steinhauser. Oh, it gets all caught up on the dirt, and that's a big impact on the exit of turn 4. Almost goes into the other wall as well, and that is going to be cataclysmic to his race efforts. And the man who's sitting in P3 in the standing and seeing the amount of damage on that car, that is a big, big impact for him. As we're checking back up ahead, though, Robin Moe has broken away from these guys. Simon Beek, though, trying to defend from Feedlack into the final corner. That's going to compromise his line, though. Oh, it's a contact, though, on the corners. Feedlack tries to make the cutback stick. I think through that series of bumps, actually managed to put Simon Beek the right way again, but Feedlack getting a little bit too hasty on the throttle and making contact there with Simon Beek, as we've got car emerging out of the pit lane. Beeg looks like he'll hold onto this one in turn 2, but he has completely missed his braking point, and that's going to give an opportunity to Feedlack, who says thank you very much, and he'll take that position away very, very easily, as those two guys will continue to do battle. Actual facts, I think immediately is a little bit of contact on the exit. Turn 3 is a brilliant run, though, for Simon Beeg. He's trying to go steaming up the inside into turn 4 now, and he hangs Sebastian Feedlack out to dry. And will he get the run done before turn 5? He will! So he recovers that mistake almost immediately. Has allowed the straight 3 cars to get involved in this one as well. I thought Feedlack there was going to send up the inside towards turn 5. I think Simon Beeg thought he was going to as well, as these guys are going to be going side by side towards turn 6. No, Feedlack backs out of that one. Wisely so as well. Can Beeg carry the momentum up the hill? I think he will, but I think the man on the move might be Manuel Rutter, trying to go up the inside of Christian Romano into the corkscrew. Does he go later on the brakes? No, Romano covers that one off, and we have a train of 5 cars now all battling for this latter half of the top 10 positions. Bjorkquist got a beautiful run there through the corkscrew, and he's putting all sorts of pressure onto Feedlack, who has now lost a little bit of ground to Simon Beeg. That gives Beeg some breathing space, which I'm sure he'll be grateful for, and Bjorkquist now finds himself potentially in a very strong position to challenge down towards turn 2. A little bit deceptive. The turn 1 is actually technically that kink over the crest just after the start-finish line. And turn 2 is where all of these opportunities end up happening. Rutter has lost the back of Romano a little bit, and so has Bjorkquist. Oh, that's very, very deep on the brakes. Almost go straight to the back of Beeg, and Feedlack is going to come under pressure, not from just Bjorkquist, but will do from Romano. Gets all sorts of hung on the dirt as well. Can Romano make anything happen from here? So the 2 white BMWs in this train have both made some very, very big mistakes under braking into turn 2. And it's cost them positions, but unlike Simon Bieg, Fiedlak not able to recover that position in the same way. So he will have to settle for P8 for the time being. Looking a bit further back though, interesting things to note. William Dorsch has made a very early pit stop. Now I haven't seen William get involved in any particular incidents. But one of our other pitters of Fernandez, obviously we saw him have a huge impact with the wall on the exit at turn 4. But William Dorsch, I think, is effectively trying to play the strategy that Dominic Gultz did at the Nürburgring, and that could work out with this level of battling in the mid-pack. That could work out very, very well for him indeed. So I have to keep an eye on his progress back through the field as some of these guys pit. But in the meantime, though, Christian has lost his advantage to... Actually, it hasn't cut down quite as much as I thought it had. That's a lapped car of... Who is that just behind? The orange car. I'm trying to catch the number plates. They've just let Connor right through. Who is that we have? Also, by the looks of it, we've got at least one retirement. Mario Bernardes has retired. Lautenschläger maybe has gone to the pits as well. It's not Dorsch or Fernandez. Alves. So I think Alves actually has done his pit stop as well. I don't... Alves, of course, getting involved in that contact with Alexander Irish on the exit, the final corner. So he's repaired that damage, now finds himself a lap down, soon to be lapped by Gultz as well, and gets well out the way of those two guys. But looking at some of these times at the front, currently with the fastest lap of the race by just 0.005 of a second is Christian Burundi, who has held on to that lead for the time being. But Connor Wright, though, maintaining that pressure, and Gultz doing a solid job as well, who actually was by far the fastest of these guys on the last lap. He was half a second, excuse me, faster, whereas in the meantime Christian Steinhauser lost almost 2 seconds on that lap. But you can see just in the background Robin Moe, after being involved in that tussle with the likes of Fiedlak and Bieg, who Bieg has dropped down the order as well. So I think something may have happened a bit further with these guys, because now we've got Bjorkquist followed by... On my timing board, it's Fiedlak, but clearly he is further down the order. So on that last lap, unfortunately we missed that, but I think that ongoing battle between those guys, unfortunately, looks like there's been something that's happened between Simon Bieg and potentially Fiedlak. Last time we looked, they weren't directly next to one another on the circuit, but clearly something has gone on with those guys. As in the meantime, Alexander Irish has continued his charge after clearly getting involved in that very unfortunate series of events earlier through no fault of his own. Has got back past James Riley, who was the driver that initiated that contact. So maybe Riley feeling a little bit guilty of that one. Clearly it was not intentional. You could tell by the level of evasive action that he took on the entry to the final corner, but Alexander Irish has been lapping pretty quickly. Looks like he was involved in quite a tussle on that last lap. He did 38.5, but his fastest lap of the race of 36.8, which, although are still a way off some of the leaders, considering the traffic he's been in, is very, very good. You can see Irish really pushing the limits there on the exit of turn 6. And does he think about going for another late dive towards the corkscrew? Not quite. Tonsad defends the middle of the track. How does Alexander get it hooked up on the exit? Does he get good drive to try to put that bright green BMW ahead of him under some pressure? Does get much closer to the apex of Rainy Curve. How does he fare into turn 10? Got a little kick of oversteer by the looks of it on the entry. Tonsad, though, running a little bit wide. Does this open up an opportunity? Tonsad going to defend the inside into the final corner. And Irish now just trying to set up the run and get a better exit. And I think he has done exactly that. We'll go on board with him as he is locked onto the gearbox of the BMW ahead of him. Not the most powerful of toes, but powerful enough potentially with Alexander's confidence on the brakes. Tonsad will defend the inside line. Does he get it? Stops. Alexander thinks about trying to put a nose up the inside, but well defended actually from Tonsad in the meantime. So Alexander Irish will have to wait just a bit longer, and how much is that damage hampering his progress through the field? In the meantime, we've had some more drivers pits. Namely, we've got Robin Moe, who has come into the pits, who is having a very strong race from his side of things, as Alexander Irish trying to put the pressure back onto Tonstad as they head towards turn 5, trying to go around the outside. Can he get the cut back towards turn 6? Tonstad, he's thinking about maybe having to defend. You can see him just leaning a little bit towards the left, but not committing too much. Oh, that's very, very wide from Tonstad. Can he hold on to it? Good car control from him, but could not uphold that position for too much longer. Irish putting too much pressure onto him, and that will see Alexander Irish getting himself up to P11. Obviously, some of the guys ahead of him have done pit stops. That is still a very, very strong effort so far from him on his surge through the field, which clearly has been very much hampered already. So where have some of these other guys come out? Robin Moe has emerged just a couple of seconds ahead of William Dorsch, with the likes of Simon Beeg going completely off there into turn 6. Sorry, Simon, that was probably a slightly ill-opportune moment to jump on board with you, but finding the limits of where the grip are. Maybe this is Simon's outlap, so clearly those tyres not quite up to temperature or pressure to push this that hard this early on into the second stint for Simon, but fortunately holding on to it nonetheless. But he has clearly lost a chunk of time, as in the meantime we've also got Bjorkqvist is coming under increasing pressure from Christian Romano, so that might be a battle to keep an eye on. Oh, it's a big kick of oversteer from Romano, well held through there. I want to see if we can get an onboard with him as he goes through into turn 6. Just see he gets a little bit of a drift on and just has to keep on putting the lock on, and then you have to snap it back again and make sure you don't overcorrect it, as then we've got a very interesting onboard camera from the game. Thank you, game. But looks like Romano is still all in one piece. I was worried that he disconnected in those few seconds for just a moment, but thankfully no such issues. In the meantime, Philip Beale, who is having a strong showing and good race as ever, looks like he's had a bit of damage in the rear of that car, and Alexander Irish really starting to try to put him under some pressure. Philip, though, diving into the pits, and Alexander will continue to stay out. So I think Alexander is just wanting to, as we've got Romano trying to go the inside of Bjorkqvist into turn 2. Won't be able to quite make that one stick, and it looks like Bjorkqvist will hold on to that position for now, but that looked like that was a very, very close effort from Romano, and all the meanwhile, this is helping out the likes of William Dorsch, Robin Moe. Oh, 113 car. Who is that has gone off in the background? That is Robin Moe. Would you believe it? I was just saying about how the likes of him and William Dorsch would be benefiting from some of these battles, and Robin Moe has lost it. How has he done that? So coming into the corkscrew now. Looks like he spotted his braking point okay through there. Oh, he gets a big kick of oversteer in the middle. Gets it all together and just dips a wheel on the dirt and just can't quite get it under control. And just ever so slightly bumps the track, as we then see a little bit of J-turn stunt driving from Robin to try to get that one facing forward as quick as possible. Fortunately, because he pitted so early, that's allowed him to do to make that kind of maneuver pretty uncontested. In the meantime, Connor Wright has come into the pit, so it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on. You can see how tight and twisty that pit entry is. We'll see if we can get a... Actually, there we go. Let's go for an onboard with Christian. You can see really have to hook the BMW around there to not go too deep into the entry, as Romano, I think that's coming into pits as well, so he was battling very heavily with Bjorkqvist. He'll be trying to get into some open air. How is Dominic Gultz faring? He's got a little bit of traffic just ahead of him, and just ahead of that is Christian on the last lap again. Dominic Gultz has been absolutely rapid in this latter portion of the stint, over half a second faster than Christian up ahead. So Dominic Gultz, maybe as we get into the second phase of the race, really looking like he's got some good pace in that car, and will be looking to try to make up for how things played out at the Nürburgring. As just looking around, we've got Nathaniel Shirley. Oh, that's just the timing board getting a little bit unsure of itself with some of the markers. But who is that? Manuel Rutter has clearly taken a huge impact to the front of that car. He lost 4 seconds on the last lap. He lost 5 seconds on this lap, as that's gravel noises just ahead, and that is Nathaniel Shirley just going off. How did that happen? I think... Oh, contact actually with Gultz. I think Gultz wasn't quite expecting Nathaniel to be as hard on the brakes on the entry there to the rainy curve, and that would have given Gultz a little bit of damage potentially. Thankfully didn't affect him too much. Actually almost did an identical lap time to Christian, so barely lost any time at all. But clearly not an ideal thing for Dominic as he sets about trying to close that time even further. As in the meantime, Steinhauser and Dorsch was wondering whether or not that strategy for William Dorsch would pay off, and it looks like he has got a very good opportunity at trying to snatch away what I think is about P5 as he's going towards the outside of the corkscrew chicane. Can he make that one stick under brakes? No, Steinhauser wisely defending that inside line. Does he get caught up on the second apex? He does. William Dorsch has got a brilliant exit, and Christian Steinhauser cuts across the inside going into turn 9. William Dorsch though trying to carry that momentum, and he is still firmly locked onto the gearbox of that car ahead to hop on board. How does William Dorsch play this? Does he think about a dive into the final corner? Closing up on the brakes, but not quite able to do anything just yet. Steinhauser though got a brilliant exit out of that chicane, but in the meantime we've got various people emerging out of the pits. We've got Bjorkquist, he's going to come out behind these guys. Where is he going to emerge amongst the field? We've also got Alexander Irish that's come in to do his pit stop, so that could be fairly crucial. Who is that? I think that is Romano sweeping around the outside, so these two guys were pretty close on track before. Romano, as he tries to sweep her around, Bjork is going to be side by side heading towards turn 3. This is the best opportunity Romano's had in a long while to make this move stick. There's a wall in the way, that's not particularly helpful, but I think Romano has managed to make the move stick, and that undercut strategy has worked out brilliantly, and his tyres will be up to temperature and pressure, so he should be able to move away from Bjorkquist now. So Bjorkquist will have to try to rein in that position once more, but a brilliant bit of driving there from Romano. Did everything he needed to do on his outlap, as he actually gets a little bit of a twitch there, maybe pushing a little bit too hard still from the number 40 car, and Bjorkquist is already putting a good amount of pressure. See, though, he did lose a little bit of time through turn 6. Romano has constantly seemed incredibly committed through turn 6 there, and no different this time round. In the meantime, though, looking a bit further up front, Dominic Gultz now doing his pit stop. Now, the man to keep an eye on is Connor Wright. His outlap was a 41.6, comparing that to the likes of Steinhauser, who did a 42.4. Have to see where is Connor Wright going to emerge. Where is Gultz? Gultz is in the braking zone for turn 2. Now imagine Vanwall Simsport car is going to flash across the screen at some point, and Connor Wright is nowhere to be seen. So Connor Wright, despite a good last lap, has lost a tremendous amount of time to Dominic Gultz. So Gultz has made that work perfectly. You can just see that Connor Wright isn't even in the very far distance. Will we see just a Vanwall Simsport car just peek for just a moment into the background? It's going to be a couple of pixels, and then you see just a tiny little bright dot. Even the high-vis colours of the Vanwall Simsport team, not quite enough to make that one visible. So Connor Wright has, in some form or another, lost a huge amount of time, which, considering Gultz's own woes when coming up to traffic, is very strange indeed. So that's worked out brilliantly for Gultz. And now, another crucial pit stop indeed. Christian Burundi has been leading this race since the start, and he is doing his pit stop now. So Dominic Gultz seemingly is the man on a charge. It's been a good solid outlap from him so far, and he'll be pushing. We've seen, oh, as he gets a little bit caught up on that curve. Christian now is on the move. Dominic only just starting to come into the final corner, but we know that these guys were only separated by about a second in the previous stint. Can we see where Christian is? That's Christian coming across the pit exit line now. You can see Dominic Gultz flying past on the exit, and surely with all of the cutting of that inside part of turn 2 in the world, he's going to be miles behind Dominic Gultz. So Dominic has done an absolutely brilliant job of making that earlier that pit stop work for him, and has done a fantastic series of laps there. 41.5 for him on his outlap, and he is miles ahead of Christian and ever extending his lead. So Dominic Gould sends himself into the lead of the race, which he will be delighted about. Now, can he maintain it with just under 20 minutes left on the clock? In the meantime, Romano has not been able to drop Dennis. It seems like these guys have been battling for a long time now. As elsewhere in the field, what else have we got going on? I think that's our timing board going a little bit wacky again, as Romano coming under increasing pressure once more from Dennis Bjorkqvist, who looks like now he's got those tyres up to temperature. It looks like Dennis may be the stronger driver in the early phases of the stint overall, and that Christian starts to find that bit of extra pace later on, similar to Dominic Gult's. Not too much that he could do earlier on, but he was so consistent during that stint, and when the drivers ahead of him, of Christian and Connor, were having to dip into the mid 36s, Dominic Gultz was still putting in high 35s, so he's just been in absolutely fine form so far this race. Romano holding on to that position for the time being, and it doesn't look like Dennis is going to be able to make a move just yet, unless he gets a fantastic exit out of the final corner. We'll see. Let's go on board with the rear wing of Romano. Romano, good straight line speed over the what's effectively a start-finish straight. There's clearly a few kinks in it. Dennis looking a bit more confident under brakes, almost goes into the gearbox of Romano there, and got a very nice line through turn 2. Dennis trying to hunt down that number 40 car ahead of his. Romano goes a little bit wide there through turn 3. Can Bjorkqvist do anything? It just looks like Bjork is able to get a bit more tucked in to the apex, but maybe Romano being a bit more conservative with his tyres, taking these wider entries. You can see visibly Dennis, even though he's behind, has that tighter entry to a lot of these corners, so he's really pushing, but maybe just takes that bit of extra life out of his tyres. And Romano, just being a bit gentler to the car, takes a really nice line through turn 6. And again, Christian's been so strong up the hill on the exit of turn 6, and that has dropped Dennis Bjorkqvist behind. I'm going to keep an eye on Dominic Gultzo, because on the last lap of the race he did a 35.3, and according to my timing sheet, he is 0.6 of a second up on that. This could be a fantastic fastest lap, and it is a 34.6 for Dominic Gultz. Connor Wright looked like he was pushing fairly hard, and all he can manage is a 35.3, and Christian a 34.8. So Dominic Gultz is absolutely flying out the front of this pack, and whilst he may have not had the strongest of qualifyings once again in race trim, he at the moment seems absolutely untouchable. So brilliant pace from him, and based on the first stint, you'd have to think that that difference between himself and the guys behind is just going to get more and more significant as time goes on. And Connor Wright has not been able to make any sorts of inroads just yet to Christian, who's still having a very strong race, currently now in P2, but he'll be disappointed after leading the race for so long. Dominic Gultz has just absolutely flown away from him. So we'll have to see. And also on this lap, it could be an error in the timings, but according to this, Christian is 2.7 seconds down, constantly increasing delta. Seems to be losing time throughout the lap, so that could just be an error in the timing. I didn't see a mistake from Christian. I would have assumed he would be a bit further down, a bit closer to Connor Wright if he'd done anything too significant. Got a little bit of traffic getting out of the way there. Let's see what Christian's lap is as he comes to the start-finish line. As he heads towards the line, it will be a 34.8, so in actual fact it was a personal best from Christian, and he was the fastest man on the circuit last time around, so clearly just the ACC leaderboard just doing ACC things. So maybe not having quite given up on challenging for the win just yet, so Dominic Gultz will have to continue to push fairly hard as the battle still rages on between Christian Romano and Dennis Bjorkqvist for this P6 position. Bjorkqvist has firmly been hunting Christian Romano down over these last few laps. He'd lost that position under the pit stops with a brilliant undercut from Romano. As in the background, we've got almost a three-way battle going down towards turn 2, and that is Alexander Irish on the back of these guys. So he'll be trying to see if he can make another 2-for-1 move stick, but Fernandez getting a brilliant cutback on Sam Maudsley. Two of these guys clearly out of position. But a very optimistic dive from Alexander Irish, gets all caught up on the inside curb. Can he is going to very wisely actually taps the brakes there to get behind Fernandez. He takes even more curb, but Fernandez now coming under increasing pressure from Alexander Irish behind. He was trying to go towards the outside now of turn 5. Difficult to make that stick. Oh, that was an interesting downshift. I'm not sure Alexander particularly wanted to do that, and actually cost him some momentum on the exit. How brave does he feel through turn 6? That looked pretty committed from the pair of them. I think Irish, you can see just how far wide he is pushing on the exit of turn 6 now, and he's got good momentum up the hill. Does he think about diving into the corkscrew? Not quite. Fernandez defending the inside line. Does that compromise his line though through the rest of the corners? Looks like he's been able to get through that one pretty well for the time being. So Irish will have to wait for another opportunity, but we've also got the likes of Simon Beeg and Fiedlak renewing their battle up ahead. Simon B going a little bit deep there into the final corner, and that might give all the invitation that Fiedlak needs. We've seen contact between these two already happen once this race, and we think it happened later on as well. But going down towards turn 2, Fiedlak all over the gearbox of Simon B. Does he try to launch it around the outside B? Can he get it stopped? He's made a mistake into turn 2 before. Fiedlak trying to go up the inside. B's going to give him room. There's a very late cut to the inside line for Fiedlak. Now trying to go around the outside into turn 3 as that three-way battle in the background is still raging on. That's a wonky exit there from Beeg, and that's lost him a huge amount of momentum. Fiedlak actually had to hit the brakes, but he's still got a little bit of his car alongside as he heads through turn 4. As Beeg almost wipes out the back of Fiedlak's car as he gets all sorts of sideways on the exit of 4, but just about manages to hold on to it. But no time to waste, because we've also got Maudsley still trying to hold on to this P12 position ahead of Fernandez and Irish continuing to put the pressure onto Fernandez just ahead. Can he make it stick towards... Oh, that was a little bit wide on the entry there for Irish. He kept that one together. You can see the amount of momentum that lost him. We'll go on board there. He just got a little bit greedy on the entry. You can see that kick of oversteer. You could hear it just dip into the sand and wasn't quite able to carry the momentum that he would have wanted through there. So we get another fantastically useless angle from the game. In the meantime, though, Romano under increasing pressure from Bjorkquist. This is the closest Bjorkquist has been in a long time as they head towards turn 2. Does he think about a dive towards anywhere? Romano, does he defend? He doesn't. And Bjorkquist looks like he is going to maintain position for the time being just behind him. But... well, endless written on the bonnet there of Dennis Bjorkquist, and his hassling of Romano ahead is just that. And he's got a good drive there out of turn 3. Can he carry that momentum through turn 4 again? Just a little bit more confident at getting the car turned in towards the apexes, and Romano sensing the pressure now has to go defend the inside line towards turn 5. Bjorkquist sending around the outside. Got to try keeping it in the camber for this corner. You can see how much momentum he loses. It's very similar to Bathurst, turn 2 at Bathurst. It's almost impossible sometimes for him to overtake on the outside around Laguna Seca because the camber of these corners is quite significant. As soon as you get further out of that, you don't have that same grip underneath you that the guy on the inside does. So it's very, very difficult to make a move stick like that, but Bjorkquist undoubtedly will be... oh, he gets a big kick of oversteer there through the corkscrew, but holds on to it. He'll be putting Romano under pressure again very, very soon. In the meantime, Alexander Irish has made the move stick for what is now, as the time boards are sorting themselves out, P13, and will be quickly, probably maybe very, very soon, be trying to put pressure on Maudsley as he got very, very deep on the exit of the corkscrew chicane. Alexander Irish trying to go all the way around the outside. That'd be a brilliant move if he can make that one stick. Trying to carry the momentum down towards turn 10. He's just got the tiniest of noses up the inside, and Maudsley having to give way. Fernandez is going to try getting the pair of them into the final corners, 3 wide into turn 11. Maudsley still trying to hold the inside line. Alexander Alexander Irish forced to go to the outside. Now, what sort of a run has Fernandez got on the pair of them? We might see 3 wide down towards turn 2 again. Morsey trying to defend the inside line. Fernandez hasn't quite got the momentum to make it 3 wide. I don't think there's a slightly car-sized gap in the middle, but I think he's going to have to hold back for now. Irish, though, still trying to put the pressure around the outside of Maudsley through turn 2. It's a brilliant action between these guys. Maudsley getting a little bit hung up on the curb. Irish having to take to the sand on the exit. That'll turn into the inside for turn 3. And can Irish get out the inside of Maudsley? And I think he's going to make it stick now, and he does. Brilliant move there, and I don't think it's over for Maudsley just yet, because Fernandez wants a piece of this as well. As he sends up the inside turn 4, and Maudsley trying to hold on to this one now around the outside. I don't think he's going to be able to carry that momentum. Fernandez trying to see if he can go side by side in turn 5. Can he make it work where Bjorkqvist couldn't? It's going to have to go for a cutback instead towards turn 6 now. And he got brilliant drive on the exit. You can see he's got at least half his car alongside as they head towards turn 6, but he backs out of it. And Maudsley very, very committed. As Irish, though, up ahead, did get away a bit, but then the rear of the car presumably got away from him, and he went wide on the exit of turn 6, but Maudsley there just about managing to hold on to the position, but he's got all caught up once more through a corner in what jeopardised his P12 position last time round, and that's going to give an opportunity to Fernandez surely once more. Heading towards turn 10, Fernandez carrying brilliant speed through turn 10. Maudsley, is he actually... Oh, Fernandez chooses a side. He's trying to fake Maudsley, but Maudsley committed to his one defensive move. Fernandez just made it slightly more complicated than it needed to be. But these two now having a drag race towards turn 2, and I'm not sure that Maudsley is going to be able to do anything about this one. He's got Fernandez charging up the inside on the inside of turn 1 now, and who is later on the brakes. It's a good fight there from Maudsley to try and stick it around the outside. We saw Irish do it, but in the end he will have to yield, and Fernandez will take that position. So Maudsley losing 2 positions in 2 laps there, but a brilliant bit of driving from all 3 of them there. And Alexander Irish's charge continues as he sees himself into P12. That's Simon Beeg a bit further up the road, who has lost the position to Feedlack at some point over the last couple of laps as well. So we'll have to see if Alexander Irish is able to make up the time to Simon in the closing just over 5.5 minutes of this race. This race feels like it's absolutely flown by, because we have had action non-stop, and the same theme continues as Nathaniel Shirley coming under pressure from the absolutely, well, talk about a facial reconstruction. The M2 of Manuel Rutter really not looking particularly healthy, but he is still trying to put pressure onto Nathaniel ahead. The 2 red BMWs seeing red themselves, and Rutter trying to find any opportunity that he can. You would have to assume that he would be the faster of the 2. Nathaniel Shirley, a good consistent drive from him so far today, but Manuel Rutter out of position with that damage. But doesn't look like he can do anything in the meantime, though. But looking ahead, Romano still under pressure from Dennis Bjorkqvist, who, ever since they have come out side by side during the pit stops, Bjorkqvist has been absolutely locked onto Romano, showing his nose towards the inside. Won't be able to do anything just yet. But Romano, again, just very calmly getting all of the exits that he needs to keep Dennis just behind. Also, just looking further up ahead, the top 2 have absolutely flown away from Conor Wright. Conor Wright does not have an answer to the pace of Dominic Gultz or Christian Burundi today. Christian has made a bit of a resurgence over the last couple of laps, just chipping away less than 1/10 of a second, but for the time being, Dominic Gultz is maintaining enough of his advantage. Although on that last lap, Dominic Gultz actually losing half a second, so maybe a mistake there from Dominic, so we could have a last-ditch attempt for lead. Oh, I heard gravel noises in the background. That's never particularly a good sign. No yellow flags, though, so I don't think it was too serious. Can Romano hold on to this position one more time? It's going to be, I think, about 3 laps of this race left. And that is 3 more big opportunities for Bjorkqvist if he thinks about a late dive, and he doesn't. Still maintaining position and holding his nerve and patience. Just hoping he'll find an opportunity and the Romano will make a mistake. Look a bit further down. Do we have any battles? We've got Heiko, who I think has just got past the likes of Alves. So a difficult day for Heiko. Clearly not the race that he would have been wanting, considering how it went for him at the Nürburgring. Alves has not said goodbye to maybe reclaiming this position though. Alves got a good run out of the final corner, heading down towards turn 1. Do you think about a move? No, it looks like Heiko in a very, very battered and bruised front end on that BMW is going to hold on to it, although Alves thinks about a look up the inside, but won't be able to do anything just yet, as is the case for the likes of this battle between Romano and Bjorkqvist. Looking up at the front though, the gap has come down considerably over the last lap. Dominic Gultz lost a second there. So has Gultz got some sort of form of problem? I wonder if he has got a slow puncture. Had he just pushed the car a little bit too hard because he lost half a second? He then lost a second, and it just looks like the pace that he once had has completely fallen off. In the meantime, Romano is under increasing pressure once more from Des Bjorkqvist, who senses an opportunity perhaps now towards turn 2. It's the closest it's been in a while, and he thinks about going towards the inside, forces defensive move from Romano. Does that allow him to get some sort of form of cutback as they head towards turn 3? Does he get a good exit? I think he does. That was a brilliant launch on the exit of turn 2 there. And Romano, though, holding station for now. Bjorkqvist carrying all of that momentum towards the outside. I think that was a rather hasty move back to the inside for Romano. Bjorkqvist, can he sweep all the way around the outside turn 4? I'm not sure he's going to be able to make that mistake. Had to back out the throttle considerably there as they now head towards turn 5. And Bjorkqvist trying desperately to see if he can keep his car alongside, but he won't. And Romano will hold on for one more time. But I do want to check in just ahead because Gultz is coming under increasing pressure now from Christian Burundi, as this will be going on to their final lap of the race, and the gap has come down from about 3 seconds to just about half a second. Christian right now seems like he is the man on the charge, and Dominic Gultz last lap 35.9, Christian Burundi a 35.2, and only half a second between them, so we could have a very, very strong battle going into the final lap of this race as Romano and Bjorkqvist go side by side. Romano off, and Bjorkqvist, will he carry that momentum through? I think he will, unless Romano sends it back towards the inside. They're still kind of side by side. Romano, though, gets hooked up on that curb, and I think Bjorkqvist maybe will keep the position, but in the meantime, you can see how hard Christian is pushing right now, and the amount of speed and confidence that he has got. He's putting Gultz under all sorts of pressure. Gultz desperately trying to get that car to the finish. Something has gone wrong in these dying laps for Dominic Gultz. How much commitment does Christian put through into turn 6? Because this could be a huge opportunity for him if he gets a good run up the hill. It was pretty even as they head up towards the corkscrew chicane. Dominic Gultz did well to keep that momentum through there, especially if he has got a slow puncture. Christian cannot go for a late dive there. How much does he push though through the corkscrew chicane? Really trying to carry as much momentum through as he can. Gultz taking a wonkier line through into Rainy Curve. Christian putting him under all sorts of pressure now. Less than 0.4 of a second between them. As Gultz goes a little bit deep through turn 10. You might have to go defensive here. We could have a drag race to the finish line. Christian, no, doesn't go up the inside. Gultz goes a little bit deep there, and I think he might just about hold on to it, but Christian is going to be wheeling that car onto the finish line, but I don't think it's going to quite be enough, and Dominic Gultz will take the win here at Laguna Seca. A brilliant effort from him. It all went a little bit wrong in the final stages, but he just about holds on to that one. Then another battle that's been raging on for what feels like forever as Romano gets a huge moment on the exit of turn 9 there. Will just about hold on to that one. As Dominic Bjorkqvist, if he gets it all neat and tidy into turn 11, it does look like Bjorkqvist in the end is going to come out on top. He did go a little bit deep, but I think he's got enough of advantage there to maintain his position over Christian Romano. Flashing the lights Looks like that was a good friendly celebration there from him. So a brilliant duel between those two, as it's not over and done with yet for just outside of the top 10, as that is Fernandez trying to go all the way around the outside of Maudsley. That'd be a brilliant move if he can make that one stick, but he doesn't look like he's going to have any opportunity to do it. Maudsley just giving him a bit of a squeeze on the exit, and he will hold on to P13 with John-Eric Tunstad just coming into the background there. And I think that is the last of our main battle. Shirley did hold on to P17 ahead of Manuel Rutter in the end, as Rutter gives a final rework to the front of that car, as obviously not a particularly happy man with that one. And Heiko did pull away from Alves in the end, and that will be it. One absolutely marvellous finish to that race. What looks like Dominic Gultz had it in the bag in the dying moments. Something, if I was to hazard a guess, either Dominic Gultz was becoming absolutely terrified of getting a drive-through penalty and became very, very cautious, or what I think maybe is more likely the case is that he got a slow puncture by just taking a bit too much curb around somewhere, because Christian, he gave it absolutely everything, but in the end he wasn't quite able to convert that pole position into a race where Dominic Gultz does some very flamboyant celebrations there, and will eventually lose it on the entry to the pit lane, but losing it when it no longer mattered, and Dominic Gultz holding on to that win ahead of clearly a hard charging Christian at the end there, and just about coming up short in the end. He'll be disappointed not to convert that debut into a race win, but still a stellar effort from him. And the man who has led the championship so far will continue to lead the championship, but maybe not in quite the same way that he would have wanted to, rounding out the podium. So another strong finish from him, and going into the finale, that is going to make it very, very difficult for anyone to particularly challenge him. In actual fact, I do want to double check the points that are available. So we've got 100 points for first place, 5 points for pole position, and 3 points for fastest lap. So a maximum possible of 108 points to be scored. And Connor Wright, so he will end up after this race, his calculations on the fly, but he will score 39 points from this race. That will take him up to 295 points, I believe. And that would mean that somebody's going to have to be around the 190 mark on the back of that. I think Steinhauser is just about close enough to carry a technical possibility of challenging Connor Wright into the final round. But you'd have to say, based on how he has performed so far this season, it's going to be a tough ask to take that crown away from Connor Wright. But we will see the championship go to the finale despite that exceptionally strong series of races from Connor. And speaking of Steinhauser, finishing P4 in that race, so a good effort from him as well, followed by William Dorsch, who will take P5. I think converting that P5 starts into the finish, so I think his personal best of the season. Strong effort from him. Des Bjorkquist, a brilliant long battle with Christian Romano, who just finished behind him at the end there to take 6th and 7th. Robin Moe ended up dropping a bit further down in the end after that rather unfortunate moment on the exit, the corkscrew, right as I was singing his praises, so he'll be rather disappointed about that, similar to the mistake he made at Alton Park. So not the ideal couple of races for him this season. Josh Waring, a strong showing from him to finish in P9, with Sebastian Fiedlach rounding out a top 10 for another top 10 finish. But we know that Fiedlach is capable of some very strong pace going into Silverstone, so maybe expect a stronger showing from him next week. Simon Beeg finishing in P11, a good debut from him with Sam Maudsley. Actually, I think Alexander Irish is disconnected from the session, hence why I can't click on his name. So Alexander Irish, his charge through the field saw him get to P12. It would have been higher, maybe even possibly challenging for top 10 if it hadn't have been for that contact between himself and Riley earlier on in the race. So very unfortunate time for him, as more people leaving the session now makes my job a bit more difficult. But Maudsley finishing in P13, Fernandez P14, 15th will be John-Eric Tunstad, Kiki Mack finishing in P16, and Nathaniel Shirley then in P17, followed by Manuel Rutter with that rather battered and bruised red BMW by the end of it. Philip Beale, not the same level of race pace we've been used to seeing from him, so he'll be looking to see if he can finish on a high at Silverstone. Heiko, disappointing day for him, did not go to plan whatsoever. And then rounding out the final few spots, so slightly difficult because I am missing some people on my leaderboard, but I believe Krzysztof Witkowski in 21st, Scharbolks in 22nd, James Riley, followed by Lautenschläger and Mauro Bernardis, who were our final spots. I think those last 4 drivers eventually retiring to the pits in that race for their various reasons. We will see if we can get any interviews. Looks like everyone's maybe being a little bit on the shy side again, fortunately. So maybe if we're lucky going into, maybe after the finale, we'll have somebody that wants to drop into the comms box with us. We've had Connor Wright having interviews after the race before, so possibly he might think about joining us. He joined us at the end of the main GT3 season, and the way that things are lining up for him at the moment in this championship, it's looking very, very strong for him going into the season finale now at Silverstone. But a very tricky race that we saw in those conditions before when these guys were at Silverstone. And on the day, Connor Wright wasn't quite in a position to be challenging for the race win. So he's going to have some difficult competition on his hands. And it does unfortunately look like that is going to be it in terms of no interviews for today. So that will be it for there. And I've been meaning to get around to a comment in the chat for quite a while. We had a couple of people getting involved in the chat. Thank you for those that joined us. And as someone brilliantly summarizes, which is probably appropriate for the end of the stream, that small cars like these M2s, and also Miatas, if you're familiar with the MX-5 racing that goes on in iRacing, always provides amazing racing. Absolutely, and couldn't agree more. And Laguna Seca, despite how tricky a circuit it is and how difficult it can be to pass, proved absolutely that. And we had non-stop action throughout the whole race, to the point where even though I saw that comment when it came through, that I couldn't quite find a breakaway from the action to actually address it. So realistically, you know, that's kind of what we want from these races, just non-stop action throughout the entire thing. But that will be it then for today. That was round 3 at Laguna Seca for the BMW M2 Racing Cup. Going into the finale then at Silverstone next week, we know it's going to be action-packed, we know it's going to be tricky, and we know that it's going to be difficult for anyone to take that potential championship win away from Connor Wright. He's put himself in such a strong position going into the final round, but anything can happen, and today was just another proof of that. So thank you very much for joining me this evening. We'll be back same time again next week for the last round of this series. And remember, as always, if you want to get involved with the Apex Online Racing community and want to get involved in some league racing, or just get involved with a community that's very friendly and just likes to discuss all things cars, both real and in the sim, then consider heading to the website to join some of the leagues of apexonline.racing, as well as following Apex on Racing on social media and getting involved in the Discord server as well. It's always lovely to see as many of you there as possible and to grow this community even further. But for tonight then, that will be it from me. So thank you everybody so much for watching. But for now, it's good night.